Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second part of the Andy Torbet series, shall we say? Welcome back.
Thank you for having me back, and hopefully, folks are still listening. Thank you for not tuning out after last week.
No, I'm sure they'll be tuning in. The life that you've led, it's in the sort of 0.01% people, and especially the stuff that you do now is. Yeah, it's incredible, and most people will only see it on their TV screens. In the last episode, obviously, we covered a lot of your cave diving and obviously you being ex-military and being the voice of Action Man, which was quite a little turn up for the books. So, with your, you did touch on it in the last episode about free diving.
Yes.
How does that? How do you get into that? Because I'm very aware that obviously you cave like just normal diving, then cave diving, and you free dive. They're all different aspects of a thing. It's like playing football, rugby, and tennis or whatever. It's three different disciplines. So, why free diving? Why did you go into free diving?
Well, I actually started free diving. I think it was called snorkeling back in the day. But anyway, when I was a kid, it's changed now. But you couldn't dive till you were 14. So when I joined the people tuned in last week, they might remember that I talked about learning to dive for the Aberdeen little dive club. So when I first joined, you couldn't scuba dive. So I just learned to snorkel properly. And you were duck diving, so duck diving. That's what they called it back then. I.e., you put your head in the water and your feet out there, and you swim downwards. Did like 10, 12 meters, which is definitely freediving territory. But back then it was just called snorkeling. So I started there first, really, and then. But what I enjoy about it now is a couple of things. One, I mean, for start wildlife wise, it's one of the best ways to see wildlife. If you can interact with sharks, and I free dive with sharks and turtle, seals, all those sort of big sort of marine creatures. Free diving is one of the most natural and least disturbing ways to do it. Disturbing for them, you're not. It's a bit more in tune with them. It's also a lot logistically easier. So a lot of stuff I do, like we did a cave dive last year with a friend of mine, Chris. And it was a 6-hour cave dive, and then we surfaced in this dry cave. We camped overnight, and we dived back out the next day. And I'd on a rebreather, and I took in 7 big scuba bottles, and we had 2 scooters, and a huge, big dry tube of camping kit. You've got an electric heated suit and a dry suit and a mask, and it's just logistically, it's like going to outer space on your own. It's a big deal. The two of us just with our dive kit filled the back of a transporter, a VW transporter. So there's a lot of kit involved. Free diving is the polar opposite of that, and it's a great break from it. You get back and you just can't be bothered doing that again. So you stick your mask, snorkel, and fins on, and if you're in the UK, your wetsuit, and you jump in the sea, and off you go. And it gives you able to be a bit more flexible. You have to planning lots of stuff and try to get gas mixes and get this and that next thing. You can just jump in the car, drive to the coast, and in you go. And I'll see me when I'm driving around the UK. I'll keep a bag, a freediving kit in the back, and I'll just, I'm planning with the family actually. We're going up to the Northumberland soon in the camper van to camping for a week in Easter. I was looking at a place we could go, and I found this really cool waterfall. And the bottom of it, I was really, kids love a waterfall. And the bottom of it, they say, this supposedly bottomless plunge pool. And I was like, hello, I'll just pack the old mask and snorkel for that, and we pop in this, because it's lightweight and it's you can take it to these weird, wonderful places. In fact, years ago, I did a project called Britain by Snorkel, where I spent 3 months basically living out of my Astra estate, my Vauxhall Astra estate, which I converted into a little one-man camper van, tiny camper van. And I went and snorkeled and free dive like shipwrecks and caves and lakes and lochs and mountain pools and waterfall pools and rivers and even bogs all around the UK. So it's all about tools. So if I'm trying to reach a dry chamber that's 3 or 4 kilometers through flooded cave system, I'm going to need some seriously technical dive gear. If I want to go and dive with short fin mako sharks, or I just want to spend the day swimming down a river, then a mask, snorkel, and fins are the better tool for the job.
Yeah, definitely. So with obviously the free diving, there's a
Mm.
lot of emphasis on breath work, I'm assuming.
Yeah. I mean, I don't freedive competitively. I teach, and I've got friends of mine who are, world class freedivers, and they do compete. I don't really freedive to compete. I freedive to go and see stuff and do stuff. But still, for training purposes, yes, the best way to train to improve yourself is that almost that using that competitive template. So it's how long you can hold your breath for, how long you can swim for on a single breath, and how deep you can go on a single breath. And there's various techniques to kind of improve that. So, and a lot of it, the most basic is relaxation, physical and mental relaxation, really. And understanding that when your body tells you you need to breathe, you in fact don't.
Mm.
So, I've done a 4.5 minute breath hold. To be clear, that's face down in a warm swimming pool, not moving a muscle. You could never do that while swimming underwater, but you literally face down, motionless, pretty much asleep. And the need to breathe kicked in after about a minute.
Mm.
It just makes it very, very uncomfortable. But when we've run courses, like really basic courses, people have turned up, they can hold breath for like 20 seconds, and by the end of it, they can hold breath for like 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes. That's over a weekend. I've not physiologically changed them in 40 hours. You can't, their tissues haven't suddenly become, nothing's changed. They're not more CO2 resistant or whatever it is. They simply have got comfortable with feeling the need to breathe and knowing, actually, yes, I hear the body tell me this signal, but in this instance, the body is being a bit overcautious. So it's psychological rather than physiological, those changes.
Yeah, I play a little game with my kids when we go to the swimming pool. Like my daughter used to swim. She's a regional swimmer, so she's pretty good in the
Yeah.
pool. But
Yeah.
her breath, she's not very good at holding her breath. Surprisingly, she swam since she was about 4. She's 12 now. And yeah, we usually do a game that they can both take a breath. Like, so while we're under, we all go under together. Sorry, I'll go under with one of my kids, and then she'll come up, and my boy will go under. And then when he comes up, she can go back under. Then when she comes back up, he can go back under. And I try and beat them on one breath.
Okay.
And I'm about 2.5 to 3 minutes I can hold it now.
Yeah.
But you are right in what you're saying. Like when I'm under there, you feel the urge of that you need to come up to breathe. And then I just sort of lay there now and just say no, I don't. Like it's just sort of.
And that's when you
game.
start getting sort of physiological changes. So what you're doing there, you'll be getting better. And the best I ever was when I was doing that Britain by Snorkel project, and I was basically in the water twice a day. I was like free diving all the time, just hold my breath all the time, like twice, long periods of time, couple hours in the morning, couple hours in the afternoon, and then you do start getting sort of physiological changes. You become more resistant to high CO2, and lower too, and you become better at dealing with the effects. But also there is a thing called the mammalian dive reflex, which is present in all diving mammals like seals or sea lions or whales and dolphins, and we humans have it as well, obviously to a much, much, much lesser extent. But when you hold your breath underwater, is placing your face, especially the receptors around your eyes, certain things happen which allows you to hold your breath longer. And it's things like your blood pooling, much like you do when you're hypothermic. Your blood pools in your organs and your brains, because it's like, okay, fingers and toes aren't essential. Heart, kidneys, brain is essential. So your blood pools there. Your spleen contracts, which pumps more red blood cells into the system. So your spleen's a big sack of extra red blood cells, basically. And also your sort of metabolism lowers, your heart rate lowers. And what your body's basically trying to do is try to go, right, I need to reduce my energy consumption. So I need to reduce the amount of oxygen I am using at a base rate. I also need to increase my red blood cells to make better use of any oxygen that's in the system. And then finally, I'm going to pool all that blood around and therefore the oxygen around the important things in my body. So these things all allow you to hold your breath longer. And you know, free divers who are doing stuff like what you're doing, really holding your breath regularly, that tends to kick in sooner and also kick in stronger. So we can, as I say, over a weekend, I'll increase your breath hold, but that's purely psychological. However, once you get to a certain point, you then can start making physiological changes. Unfortunately, they don't last long. So if I've not done much breath freediving training for a few months, you know, I'm kind of back to square one. So, but it is what it is.
All right. So while we were off air, actually, we did start talking about obviously your skydiving.
Yes.
Do you want to start talking about that? Because
Okay, so
fucking
I mean, I do a lot of different
insane.
skydiving, wingsuiting, you know, doing normal sort of belly to earth and free flying and that sort of stuff. But I competed for TeamGB out in the World Championships in Arizona in speed skydiving. So it's various disciplines at a world championships. There's obviously wingsuiting, there's artistic, there's swooping, which they do with the parachutes that swoop in. There's free flying and making shapes in the sky. Lots of stuff. Anyway, what I compete at was speed skydiving, which is the fastest human powered sport in the world, and it is the easiest discipline of skydiving to translate to a non skydiver because it's pretty simple. You jump out the plane, fastest person wins. Simple as that, and it's top speed. It's not fastest person to ground because that would be incredibly dangerous. So in competition, we jump from 13,500 feet, and the bottom gate, if you will, is 5,500 feet. So up to 5,500 feet, you got to put the anchors on, you come out your dive, you get big, you try and get as much drag as possible before you open your parachute, because a parachute is designed to open at about 120-ish miles an hour, which is normal free fall speed for someone who is kind of belly to earth, you know, arms and legs spread out like you kind of people normally associate with skydiving. But well, I mean, I'm not actually that good at it, but the world record holder, Marco Hep, he set another world record out in Arizona, and he hit a top speed of, and it's done in kilometers because it started in Europe, but 527 kilometers an hour, I think he got, which is like 312, 350 mile an hour. So fast. I mean,
Yeah.
properly fast. So if you're 350 miles an hour at 5.5 grand, bearing in mind you want to pull your parachute at 3,500 feet, you've got 2,000 feet to try and bleed off that speed, which is not much, it would just seconds at that speed. So yeah, that's and the thing about it is that people go, how can you go that fast? The idea is that you've got to reduce drag. You can't increase weight. That's cheating. You can't wear a weight belt. That's not allowed in competition. So you got to decrease drag. So what you do is you go head first, you go head down, you bring your legs together, you bring your arms by your side, and you just try and, you know, minimize that drag to increase acceleration. The problem is that your body wants to fall off and lie down like in that belly to earth. So it's like trying to balance a pencil on its tip. That's what you're trying to do. And the less corrections you make, the less drag you have, which means the faster you'll go.
Just to put it into perspective,
Mm.
what was your recorded speed?
So my top recorded speed, I'm trying to do. I'll do this in. I think it's 276 miles per hour. Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, ballparking, really. I know obviously he's
Well, I mean,
quicker, but
yeah, the top guys. There's about 11 or 12 guys over 500 kilometers an hour, so over 300 miles an hour. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, it's not a huge field, but um, there's at least a dozen blokes at the moment, you know, banging over 300 miles an hour on the way down. I'm not one of them,
right.
but there we go.
Is that something that you want to get to? Is that sort of a point that you want to hit, the 300-mile-an-hour mark?
I don't know. Right there only. I don't. So speed skydiving is a pretty niche sport within a pretty niche sport.
Mm.
So I think if I didn't get any better, I'd probably still make the grades to go and, you know, go to the world championships and kind of hang out. And I went there, you know, without being negative, I was never going to be in the podium. I was never going to be top three. You know, I know those 12 guys. I was like, right, there's no way, you know, I'm suddenly going to get that good, which is fine because I just enjoyed myself. I was under zero pressure. I'm like, cool. I'm just here to basically hang out at the World Championships, represent Team G, wear my Team GB t-shirt. This is cool. I've already made it. I've won because I've made it here. This is me. Um, to get to that level, I would have to be very dedicated with just that one discipline. And with the amount of skydiving I do for work, like stunt work, but also coaching and fun stuff, I don't know if I want to give all that up and just speed skydive, kind of almost, full time, certainly from the skydiving point of view. Like I'll use almost my skydiving just for that one thing, which is what's required. Um, so yeah, I'm not sure I'm motivated enough to break 300. I might, so we've got the World Cup coming up, which is actually a lesser event, the World Championships. We've got the World Cup coming up in Hungary, I think it is, in August this year. So I'll probably do some training for that. Hopefully I'll bring my speed up a little bit. But what I'm not going to do is every jump I do between then and now will not be a speed jump. In fact, the majority will not be, because there's more fun things to do, frankly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what sort of time? How long does that take?
Not long. Well, I mean, I don't know, 20 seconds, something like that. You jump from 13 out. You're in free fall for 8,000 feet. So somebody clever me very well. So 8,000 feet, which I don't know what that is. It probably easier doing it's a vertical kilometer, actually. So if you're doing 300 miles, if you're doing 500 kilometers an hour, how long will
But
one
that'll
kilometer take? Take 1/5 of an hour. No, say 1/500th of an hour. So it'll take, like, I don't know. It's like about 20 seconds. It's about 20 seconds.
yeah, because you'll obviously have to accelerate to that speed
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
well.
If you're doing it properly, sometimes you fall off. If you're doing it properly, effectively your fastest speed should be right at the bottom gate, because you should be accelerating all the way and just keep accelerating to your sort of beepers go off. We have these alarms in our helmets, which signal us at 5,500 feet. Because our hands are by our side, so we can't see our altimeter on our wrist. So yeah, they blare out at 5.5 grand, and we pull out and try and slow down before you open your parachute.
Yeah, no, you can keep that one. um, so, oh, you've touched on it just then, actually, when you were talking about your stuntmanning.
Mm, yeah.
Talk us through that. How did you get into it? What have you done stunt wise? What was the best stunt?
So I got into I mean, from the sort of TV documentary world, I was kind of doing what you probably think of stunts. I was doing like wingsuit jumps, I was doing speed skydive jumps, I was doing cave diving stuff and climbing stuff, all for documentaries. But I basically, so I'm part of the British Stunt Register, which is like the kind of stunt performers, not union, but it's like the stunt performers. Well, it's the kind of organization in the UK, which is very high standard. If people want to, there's a whole, you've got a whole range of skills to get on the register, and those skills have to be at a fairly impressively high level. When I started training for it, it was no easy task, and I was already pretty much halfway there. But I got into it because I had a couple of big projects with one with the BBC, one with the Natural History Unit, sorry, one with the BBC and one with Nat Geo at the end of 2018 that got cancelled for various reasons, just because commissioners move around, and when a new commission comes in, they want a clean slate, and they want their own ideas, which is not ideal financially. So I got a friend of mine who's my main kind of underwater cameraman that I use, and sort of, he's another cave diver and technical diver, and he said, "Oh mate, I've got some work for you. I know you don't do much safety diving anymore, but it's a safety diving job. But they want specifically somebody who can do stunt safety. So, in instance, they understand kind of how stunts work. It's underwater, it's under ice. They don't want any bubbles, so you got to be a rebreather. And they've asked me for somebody, and also you're going to have to build a structure. So you basically need to understand underwater construction, ice diving, rebreather diving, safety diving, and stunts, and filming. Actually, to do a little bit of cam work." I was like, "Mate, great. 3 weeks work out in Norway. Sounds with my mate. Fantastic. Sounds brilliant." He said, "Who's it for? I can't tell you until you say yes." So, okay, yes, okay. So I said yes. I sent a bit of paper. Anyway, he's like, "Right, it's the new James Bond film." Oh, okay, cool. Um, So I got out there and I was chatting to the dive supervisor, a guy called Dave Shaw, who runs the underwater stage at Pinewood Studios. And he said, "Have you ever thought about getting into stunts?" I said, I'd actually love to, but it's not an easy thing to do. Or for me, it seemed a bit of a closed shop. It's easier now that you can go on the website and it is a bit simpler, but it's still quite seems quite a black art. Um, So I'd love to, because he's like, he's like speaking to Rich, who's the cameraman. He's about your ex-military, all your climbing stuff, all your skydiving stuff, all that bits and pieces. I was like, I'd love to. So, well, leave it with me. And, I've heard that a million times before, in the world of TV. And I was like, all right, that'll be the end of that. But that night in the bar, he's like, right, mate, I've had a word with the stunt coordinator, and he's going to come and speak to you this week. Just don't approach him. Just wait, and he'll come to you in the ice, and he'll chat with you. And the stunt coordinator is like the stunt boss. So this is the guy in charge of stunts for Bond, pretty much the biggest thing going. So it's like, all right, well, we'll see if that ever happens. Next day, Lee, the stunt coordinator, walks up to me, and we have a little chat. And he's like, right, can you send me a one-page summary of all your bits and bobs you think is relevant? I was like, yeah, sure, no problems. Thinking, I have no idea what's relevant to like James Bond stunt performer. But I wrote this one page up and sent it to the stunt coordinator, and then he's like, cool, leave it with me. I was like, okay, that'll be the end of that. They got back and they said, oh, can you come in and do some underwater training with some of the cast, just train a little bit of free diving, a little bit of scuba diving, just get them back up to speed, see how they're doing. Did a couple of days of that, and then got a phone call saying, would you like to come to Jamaica as the underwater stunt specialist? Why, yes, I would. Pack your bags, basically you're going tomorrow. So that was it. I was in Jamaica for 4 weeks, I think we were there. And that was, that was kind of my contract. But I was sent back to the UK to start prepping the underwater stunts in the underwater stage at Pinewood, with the guys from Special Effects. That was in a few weeks, and then there was an abseil sort of stunt was involved, and then because I used to be a mountaineering instructor and that stuff, they got me in to do that. And there's a lot of military stuff. There's a whole military scene, so they got me in to be one of the sort of, I think they're supposed to be Russian special force mercenaries, but anyway, but the military sort of thing. So I did that, and then I was back in usage from underwater stunts, and basically I just stayed on the job for like pretty much the entire year, from February to November 2019. I was just on as a stunt performer in the stunt department, which was absolutely phenomenal. And not just because I'm a massive Bond fan. Like, we've got well now 4 Bond posters in our kitchen, and they've been up for years and years and years. That's not a new thing, but and because obviously, being a stunt performer on a James Bond film is exactly as cool as it sounds. But what made me love going to work on a Monday morning was the people. They were just, it's probably not since I've left the forces have I felt that sense of kind of, brother and sisterhood, really. These are top of their game. These are like, super professional, super motivated people, very, very highly skilled, but also genuinely decent human beings, like really just nice people to hang out with. And I think within a few months, it's like, right, this is it. How do I do more of this? And the guy's like, well, you need to get in the British stunt now. So that's how we do it in the UK. Okay, cool. What do we need to do? And I started looking into it, and some of the guys were helping me. And then I was still working in TV, actually still doing some stunt work, but it took just shy of 3 years to get on the stunt register. And I was already halfway there. So of the 6 disciplines you need, I already had 3 of them. I need 3 more disciplines. That's how much time and effort it takes.
Nice. I mean, that's a tick on the bucket list, isn't it? Surely.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's been downhill stuff. I've done some cool stuff since, but I think I might have peaked quite early working on that film. Although I'm working with the same guys, I'm just this last week, and we've started a new film. A lot of it's the same crew, same stunt coordinator, a lot of the same crew, like same stunt performers. And then before that, again, another film. Because a lot of the stunt coordinators take their own assistants, like 2 ICs around in the same teams, so you meet the same people over and over again, so you kind of all hang out with your mates quite a lot. So it's just a usually it's a really nice environment to hang out with, and it certainly beats paying the bills compared to doing the old ex-forces work, as far as funding my expeditions go.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously with your, all these extreme sports that you are doing, how do you keep yourself in tip-top condition?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's part of my job, which is fortunate. People say, "Oh, how do you motivate yourself to train all the time?" It's like, well, I got to. Like, I've got to be in shape for work. Whether it be cave diving, skydiving, rock climbing, or stunt work, they all require a reasonable level of physical ability. Some of the stunt work requires a lot. Um, so I train about 6 days a week. I mean, these days I'm in my sort of 40s now, mid 40s. So it's more about trying to keep my smashed up back and knees and all that still working, rather than anything else. But luckily, I live in a forest, so land's a bit cheaper than it probably is around places like central London. So I've got a pretty big garden. So when I moved in here, I built like I don't know, like a giant shed in the back garden, and half of it is my kit store and workshop. I've got a huge amount of kit, and the other half is my gym. So it's like sort of 5 meters by 5 meters, to 25 square meter room, the gym, and I've kitted it all out. So I've got bars and rings, free weights, kettlebells, all that sort of stuff there. And fortunately, I did all that in 2018. I finished the gym in 2018, which was handy. Come 2020, when COVID hit and gyms were closed, I still had this amazing gym, because it means when I'm home, I don't need to go and try and find a gym, like just waste time. I'm quite pretty busy. Also, if my missus is away, she's adjusting her. So if she's away working and I'm at home with the kids, the boys come in the gym with me. It's great. I have two boys, and we, they're kind of they're 6 and 8. So when I say they train with me, I mean they're kind of messing about, but it's all good. But yeah, they can come to the gym, and I can still train. So it is, and we all use it. The boys love getting there. Sometimes they go in there on their own. They'll basically make assault courses. But and my wife, she trains in there probably 5 or 6 days a week as well, because it's just easy. You just even got half an hour. Cool, just nip out in the garden, smash a quick session, and I can crack on the day.
Yeah, that was almost my problem today. I finished work at 2, almost on the dot, and I shot to the gym. I thought, I'll quickly get a gym session, because obviously I've still got to set up all of this when I get back.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, and then I was walking up to a machine. I was like, fucking sitting on it, and I was like, how many sets you got left? And because people just sit on them, especially in the gym.
Yeah.
Like, people just sit on them, and I'm like, can we just go between? But yeah, it is. How much did that out? Like, how much was that for you to kit out your gym with everything?
Kit it out.
Just ballpark.
God, I don't know. The frame that's in there. So I've got a big, like, a monkey bar A-frame thing that fits the walls and ceiling of the gym. It was bespoke, so I designed it myself, and got, the company doesn't exist anymore. It was a group of like blacksmiths and fabricators who are also sort of gym buddies, did a sideline of making these sort of frames that were rigs. So I designed that one myself, so it fits. I've made maximum use of the space, so the bars kind of go up the walls and then along the roof, and then to the apex. And there's a couple of stations in there for like squat racking, or do bench press, what we want to do there. So that was a couple of grand, I think, for all that. And then most of the kit, boxes, free weights, kettlebells, all that sort of stuff, have come from a company called Wolves and Fitness, up in Wolverhampton, funnily enough, who I'm not affiliated to. I don't get any sponsorship from. I spoke to them, and they do some really good kit, and it's not silly prices, and they were really helpful. So I tend to go back to use them quite a bit. Mace. I've got mace bells and clubs as well. So it's kind of built up over the years. That initially it was mostly weights, but as my sort of training has developed, because it's kit that I need. There's nothing there that I don't use. I've not got any machines in there. I've got a ski out, but I'm getting like weightlifting machines. That's not what I use. I'm very into kind of monkeying about. So like pull-ups and that. So there's like a million different pull-up bars, and there's ropes, and I've got gymnastic rings and that sort of stuff. But yeah, more recently I've started to get into things like clubs, like swinging clubs around, just because I found that it really helped my shoulders and that sort of stuff, my mobility, rather than just the old fashioned sort of bodybuilding way, which people criticize. It's not a problem that if you're a bodybuilder, then that's the way to do it. It depends on your sport, but I need to be able to kind of move well and have a certain degree of robustness for what I do, and have that kind of general fitness. So things like doing pull-ups, doing rope climbs, swinging a club around. That's more useful than those specific muscle isolation machines that you might see in a bigger gym.
Yeah, yeah. With all your sort of diving and all the rest of it, obviously a big thing, especially on like the social medias and stuff at the minute, is cold exposure, doing ice baths and stuff like that. Is that something that you've ever done?
Kind of. So I don't have an ice bath, that sort of stuff. I mean, I probably should try it because from a lot of people have been saying how great it is, but I don't know. It seems a bit. I mean, I, I expose myself to cold enough. Some of the cave diving stuff I've done when I'm underwater for hours and hours and hours and hours in freezing cold water. I've been borderline hypothermic on dives so many times. So the idea of like, do I really need to punish myself more just for the crack? And I guess one of the things that it certainly has health benefits. There's no doubt about it has health benefits, but sometimes I do look at people and go, yeah, you're paying attention to the minutiae and not the major. It's a bit like people going, oh, I'm gonna take this supplement. It's like, mate, you've not been to the gym in 2 weeks and you're eating crap. Like, yes, that supplement does work, but that's not you're starting at point 10. You need to deal with points 1 and 2 first. Like once your diet's on point, your sleep's on point, your training's on point, then start looking at supplements or ice baths. But I did on that Operation Iceberg that I spoke about, I think last episode. A friend of mine who's a presenter on it, a guy called Chris Van Tulken, who's a doctor, a medical doctor. He had this idea that I would be better able to control my cold water response than he would be. So, and by that, what he meant was that initial response when you fall into cold water, that gasping reflex that actually can kill people because you can take in water. So his idea was that as a diver, a cold water diver, I'd be better able to hold my breath and not have that gasping reflex. And his kind of plan for this experiment was for me and him to jump into the Arctic Ocean, which being salt water was, I think, -1 at the surface, in our pants, which is about as unpleasant as it sounds. So I did that. That's probably the closest I've come to like an ice plunge thing. But the thing is, people say, "Oh, it must have been when it was cold, it was bloody freezing." But it wasn't much worse than like jumping into the North Sea, because I think your skin, hasn't got like a massive fine ability to tell temperature. It's like if you're really, really cold and you get into a warm bath, it feels red hot. So a lot of it depends on how warm you are. So I jumped into it. It was -1, the water, but to be honest, it could be in 6 degrees Celsius, and it probably would have felt exactly the same. To be fair, it was cold though.
I have started introducing ice baths in. I've started back training. I started at the gym in December, start of December, and I've pretty much not missed many days since. And I've my body composition has completely changed. Since leaving the military, I did nothing basically for 4 years, got fat, and then went, I need to address this. Did a triathlon last year, then went back to my old ways and got sort of fat again. And then went, right, December, I need to get this in check. And ever since then, I have been. And I've introduced the ice bath into it, and I have noticed no end of benefits. My recovery seems to be a lot better. And for me, cutting out carbs is a massive thing as well. If I seem to have too many carbs, I start to get like really bad joint pain in my shoulders and my knees.
Yeah.
And I just playing about with that. But like you say, when people are like, oh, I'll take this pill and the rest of it, but you've got to do that as an add-on, not as it's not a magic pill. It doesn't solve everything.
I think the more you do, the more you can chase or the marginal gains. Like you're saying, fussing for it. That's right. Go to the gym regularly. Now, whether that's 3 times a week, 4 times a week, 5 times a week, 6 times a week, but go to the gym regularly. Sleep. If you're like sleeping is rubbish, then don't worry about that supplement, unless that supplement's going to help you sleep. And your diet, if you're eating crap, then again, if you're living off pizza and kebabs, taking a bit of extra magnesium probably isn't going to help you much.
No.
But you're right. And with diet, people, I do get DM people say, "Oh, what sort of stuff do you eat? What sort of diet do you take?" It's like, well, diet's super important, but I think it's very individual as well. It's why you get people go, "Oh, it's really confusing. This person says keto is the best thing. This person says high carbs is the best. This person says vegan is the best thing. This person says carnivore is the best thing." It's like they could all be right. They could all be right because, it might work for them. So over lockdown, when I was obviously in complete control of what I ate because we're cooking at home and, eating at home, I did an experiment where I went vegan for 6 weeks, and then I cut out gluten for 6 weeks, and I cut out dairy for 6 weeks, and we went keto for about a month actually, to find out, okay, what's good, what's bad, what's work. I cut tomatoes out for 4 weeks. So some people actually have problems with tomatoes. They don't know it because it's mild, but tomatoes are part of the nightshade family. Some people actually, they react to tomatoes like they would do to gluten and dairy. That was the hardest one. Cutting gluten out your diet is not difficult. Cutting dairy out your diet isn't difficult really either. Cutting tomatoes out your diet, I'll say in my diet, is really difficult because like spag bol, chili. I mean, there's like so much food has tomatoes in it. Luckily, tomatoes are fine with me, so it's a bit like, logistically that'd be a nightmare. Even keto, so I do okay with keto, but I need a bit of carbs, especially when I train a lot. So I was slightly struggling with it. My missus, amazing. Like she lost body fat, she had massive energy, her moods were good, like all that sort of stuff. She reacted much, much better, noticeably better to keto than me. So I think it's very individual. And I think people said, also, again, people want the answer. It's like, tell you what the answer is. The answer is you take potentially 6 months of your life and you experiment with yourself until you figure it out. But much like going to the gym, like you're not going to build muscle in a week. You're going to build muscle over months and years. Well, same for diet. You sort of cut things out and put things in to figure what works best for you and for your lifestyle. Because I'm sure if you're training in the gym now, that's a different kind of, I don't know, nutritional requirement than when you're doing triathlon. Triathlon, I don't know, but I would suggest doing a triathlon on keto would be pretty difficult, I think, to training for it.
I did it. I did it on. I'd call it carnivore-ish. I have meat and fruit basically. That's pretty much it.
Okay. And you did triathlon now, did you?
It was only an Olympic distance.
Still,
I say only. Obviously, it's more than what most people do.
See, well, it's still pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I was never much. I mean, I actually did a lot of long runs in the forces because I had to like 12 miles and that, but I was finding it quite boring. I used to love assault courses because my mind was engaged the whole time. Whereas, like just a run for 12 miles used to kill me. A friend of mine actually, he just did out in Portugal end last year. He did an Ironman, which is impressive in and of itself. What I thought was more impressive was the training, because the longer the event, the longer the training. So he was spending 4 or 5 hours a day training, because if you're training for to run a marathon, then you need to be doing long runs to train for that. Yeah. If you're doing long swims, long cycles, so to do an Ironman, it is a requirement to do very long training sessions. Yeah. I mean, he, I don't think so much for his wife and kids for like 3 or 4 months leading up to it. But yeah, because people have asked me and he said, "Would you do an Ironman?" I was like, "No, mate, because I haven't got like 5 hours a day to spare to train."
No. I'm just going to interject here because this is going to cut out very soon.
Oh, okay.
Do you just want to give everyone your socials?
Yeah, sorry, folks, we're out of time. Best place to find me is on Instagram, which is just Andy_Torbet. That's me. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast, Andy. It's been a pleasure.
Cool.
We'll see you again, folks.
Thanks. Bye now.